The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, this is Greg Stumpf out here in lovely, chilly Norman, Oklahoma, after we've had one of our earliest snowfalls on record. I'm with the Decision Support Branch, work for Steve Smith, who is the project director of the virtual laboratory. He's in Taipei this week, so he's not going to be available for our welcoming remarks, so I'll give those. So, first of all, I want to thank all the folks who are going to be presenting today and thank those that are in attendance. We have these meetings approximately now once every quarter, and the general layout of the meeting is to talk about what's new in the VLab, have a couple of demos of some of the things that are new or are about to be added to the virtual lab, and then a community and or project spotlight person to talk about how they have used the VLab to their advantage. And then we follow that, wrap up the meetings with a roundtable discussion, taking questions from anybody who's in attendance. Couple things of note, I wanted to let folks know that we're ramping up some of our outreach activities in the virtual laboratory. We had an outreach event here in Norman at the National Weather Center that was well attended by folks from the various NOAA units within the building here. We're going to continue outreach events. We're going to have one at College Park in December, the second week of December, and another one up in Kansas City at the Central Region Headquarters building in January, with some to follow after that as well. So the VLab, of course, continues to grow. We're getting more and more users every day, adding more and more communities and projects. So we're learning that it's been a benefit to many people. So anyway, to kick things off, we're going to bring on our head architect of the virtual lab, Ken Sparrow, and he's going to talk about what's new and coming with the VLab. So I'm going to go ahead and make Ken the presenter, and take it away, Ken.
All right, great. Well, welcome. So I'm going to first talk about what's new. And one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to get better organized in the way in which we manage the VLab project itself, and in particular releases. So what we've been doing is using the capabilities within VLab, not a surprise, to handle this. We've been using more of an agile approach, and what we're doing is we're creating monthly releases, and these can be seen. Everyone has access to this within the roadmap section within the VLab project, and anyone within VLab has access to that project. And you'll see that 18 is the year, and then 11 is the month, and then these are the issues that we're currently working for this release. We're working basically this release and then the next release. The modular nature of VLab is such that some of the changes are with Redmine plugins, others are within specific plugins or modules within VLCS, and then there's security updates that we're doing, and so my point there is that the releases, it's not one huge release that goes out to VLab. It comes out incrementally. So if you see something listed within here, it means it's our intention that that work will be completed and rolled out into production by the end of the month. We're working on creating release notes so that people can go and see some additional details about what's being done. So that's to be coming soon as well. And the roadmap, the release, will actually point to that, but that's not in place yet. So some of the things that we're currently actively working on are things that you're going to see demonstrated today. So the demonstrations are going to be from our development instance, but we're working hard to try to get those out by the end of this week to our production instance. And so I think that's some of the main things. Well, I guess I can run through a couple of the things. Mike's going to give a demo in a little bit about the My Communities and some improvements there. I'm excited to have those be rolling out. We're looking at including tags within Redmine. That's something that many people have asked for, and in fact, the Redmine project itself, for over 10 years, that's been one of the most commonly requested features. It's a puzzle to me as to why the baseline system why they haven't introduced that there. But there's a plugin available, and we've made some slight tweaks to it to get it to do what we need to do, and that'll be rolling out very soon. We're also planning to make some changes in terms of the way in which external users are handled. Today, we have to create accounts in both Redmine and VLCS. In the future, that will just be created within VLCS. And so that'll be nicer for the external partners too. If you're a big user of external partners within your communities or within your projects, this will streamline that process, and that there will only be one set of credentials needed. The other nice thing about it is that if they have to reset their password, they don't have to go through us for Redmine, because VLCS already has that built-in capability to reset their password from the front of the front page, guest page. So that's coming our way. And we're working on some search improvements. That may have to slide back to next month. Our primary developer working on that has been on leave, but he'll be coming back later this week. So, and then we're also looking at upgrading to Redmine 3.4, and that has some nice new features. It's also a more recent version, so it addresses, the latest patches and security issues and things such as that. So be looking for that. And then down here, we've got install fixpack 61. This is for Liferay. Liferay is what we use for VLCS. And so that's something that every week or 2 weeks, they release a new patch, and we have to go through, make sure that all of the updates that we've made and all the modifications to meet VLab users' needs are still working with the new version, and update all those. And so it's not a trivial thing, but that's coming, and that's hopefully by the end of this week as well. So we've been spending a lot of time on that. So that's those are the main things. There are some slight changes to the Ideas Marketplace. We met with the stakeholder there, so that's coming. And then in support of my dashboards, which I'm going to demonstrate in a little bit, there have been some new portlets that have been developed by Mike Giebler, who's going to be doing demos today. So that's it for the update on VLab.
Okay, thanks, Ken. If anyone has any questions regarding what's new with the VLab, you can use the raise your hand feature or the questions feature on the GoToWebinar dashboard. Otherwise, Ken, if you want to go ahead and start your demo of the dashboard, that'd be great.
Okay, all right, we'll do that. So My Dashboard is a new feature, and what it is intended to do is give users within VLCS pages that are unique to them and have content that's specific to them. So what we've done is has not been rolled out to production yet, and like I said, it will be. I'm hoping that it'll be rolled out later this week. We just need to run through a little bit more testing on it. Don't be concerned by this red here. These are entries that were entered in a few years ago when we first started testing the request feature, so that won't exist for other users. But the idea is that when you log in, you'll be able to go to your dashboard. It's under your own section. So you click on link, and then you've got My Dashboard. Today you have My Profile. My Profile is a page that other users have access to. Like if they do a search for some subject matter that you've indicated you're an expert on, if they click on your name, it's going to take them to your profile. But My Dashboard is unique to you, And so what this then allows, our intention then is to provide information that is specific to you. So for example, all the communities that you're a member of, so you can quickly see those. Also, Mike just developed this new portlet here that lists out all the projects that you're a member of. So you have one quick way of quickly getting to that. And if you click on these, it'll take you to the project, but yeah, in a separate tab. Likewise, a little bit further down, you've got your bookmarks. If you want to manage bookmarks, this way you can. And then the My Redmine issues is here. So if you are working on both sides, you'll be able to quickly see the issues that are assigned to you, as well as the issues that are reported by you. And then click on those to get to the details within Redmine itself. So that's that. The social connections is a way, and we need to make some slight changes to the vocabulary before this rolls out, but it's basically what you can do is you can go in and request to be an associate with someone else within the VLab. And then once you do that, you see, and they accept it, you would then see the activity that they've been involved with when they're joining communities, what sort of, and then they would see that for you as well. So that's just a way to kind of make those connections within VLab and see the interconnects. And you can see here in our dev system, and again, the language of friends will be switched to associates, but that's there. And then lastly, on the blogs, you have the ability to create blogs, and then those would be accessible from other users that are following you. So that's what we're doing. And like I said, we're going to do a soft rollout with this. What I mean is there's not going to be a huge amount of advertising up front because we want to make sure everything's working properly within production. And then once we're sure that everything's behaving the way we'd expect it to, and is adding value, then we'll post things on the front page and send out notifications so that people know it's there, and we'll can start taking advantage of it. So that's the My Dashboards feature. So that's it. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Ken? Raise your hand or the question feature. Okay, looks like everybody's good to go there. So, so we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next set of demos by Mike Giebler. And Mike, you are unmuted, and I'm going to make you the presenter. And thanks, Ken.
You're welcome.
Okay, everyone should see Mike's screen now. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. All right. Before I get started, I want to apologize in advance here real quick. I'm on a virtual machine, and I'm getting some funny behaviors. Every time I click on a link, it's opening in a new tab, and that's not the normal behavior for these, but I think we can still get a good demonstration out of this. What I have on the screen currently is the My Communities portlet, the way it is today in production. And for all the communities, we currently display the number of members, how many of those members are online right now. And currently, the only sort available is to be able to sort this by name. And so we got a request to make some modifications to this, where a user wanted to be able to, at a glance, look at a community and see how active it is, and be able to kind of make decisions if they want to look at that community or join that community based on how active that is. So we made some enhancements to this that I'll show you here in just a second. This is the same portlet here. We have it out on our dev site. And we tried to make just an indicator that's pretty easy to see. It's this recent activity, and we came up with, we'll have like 3 levels of activity: low, medium, and high, based on the number of uploads to documents, wiki entries, and things like that. And then also, to help make that a little more visual, we made a larger font size if they have more activity, and a different color. And we've also added sorting. So now, instead of just the name, we can also sort by how many members are in the community, and also by this activity value that I put on here. And here you can see that this funny behavior I'm having, it's going in a new window. And I need to do this in descending order to get the most active ones at the top. And that's how it initially comes up. So red is the highest activity level, the gold is a medium, and blue is a low activity level. And then if you hover over those dots, a little table will pop up, and that kind of shows you what that number represents. So it shows that there are 164 forums uploaded, 3 web content articles either created or edited, 113 documents. Add those up and it comes up to that 280 number. And as I said, we can also do it by members count. And you can see the main page has everybody enrolled in that community, so it comes up to the top. But you can change the order. We have this in descending order by member count here. So those are just a couple of enhancements we made for the My Sites portlet to accommodate that request.
We got a question from Tom Filiaggi. He wanted to know if the forum count that's shown when you hover over, is that the number of threads or the number of posts?
That, I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe it was threads. Yeah, we're counting, yeah. So actually, a thread could have multiple posts to it. So it's the count of all the posts.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike on the My Communities? Okay, Mike, you had one other item you want.
Yeah, right. The other one was we a while back created a structure and a template for web content to be able to display a web content folder as an accordion type navigation tool. And as you expand the accordion, the web content articles that are within that folder will show up in there. And then when you click on those, that contact article will show up in an asset publisher to the right side of that accordion template. And we've made some improvements to that. We, instead of using the web content structure and the template, we changed this to a portlet to give us more flexibility. It improves how easy it is to set it up. And also, there was a request that once this is placed on the page, people would like to change the order that the folders show up, and also the order that the articles within those folders show on the screen. And we didn't have that ability in the structure and template before. So we've made all those enhancements, and this is what that looks like. I don't know if, I know some people on the call may have used this. I know Greg has this on one of his sites. But this is what it looks like. On the left is the navigation portlet, and these little items are the different folders. And if you expand one of these, it shows the articles within that folder. And then when you click on one of those, the portlet on the right displays that article. And to make it simpler, what we've done is on the Web Content Navigation display portlet, it has one configuration option, and you get to that in the configuration, and we have just need to set the default article ID, and you can see that it's a number up here. And we've made it so that you can actually navigate through your web content structure and through the different folders and select that, and that'll change that default article ID. And that's the one that'll show up when you first come to that page. For the Web Content Navigator on the left, I'll just walk through the configuration on that one. The same thing, you select the root folder that you want to display, and we created this tree menu that you can browse through to select that. In the old methodology, you had to figure out what that folder ID was and manually enter it in here, but this way you can, if you click on it, you can see that number changes. We'll go back to what we had there. And then also there are a couple of other options. One is this show search. It's just a toggle on or off. And there is at the top of the portlet, there's a little search, a place where you can enter search for different articles. And the search results for that are just within what's underneath this main folder. So it doesn't search the entire website or anything like that. It just displays results that come from what you selected for the portlet. And we also have two menu styles. You saw the accordion style. We also have this tree style. And if I save that, you can see what that looks like. Which is good if you have multiple levels. As you can see on here, there's multiple right through here in this create folder. So if you want to go multiple levels deep, this tree folder might be a different solution you might want to consider. And I will go back and change it back to the accordion view. And in this configuration window, we also have this second tab up here, configure the sort. And currently, this is the order that those were showing. But if I click on this folder, this is the main folder here. Oh, it's putting me into a different window. So I clicked on the user guide, the top level folder, and it shows that there are some subfolders in here on the left. And on the right, there's only one article under there, so we don't really want to sort the articles there. But if we wanted to put this user guide management that currently shows at the bottom, if we want to put that all the way to the top, we can highlight it and then use these arrows at the bottom and move that to the top. And we can move some other ones around here too if we wanted to, like we put this external partners. Except I have two of them highlighted, unfortunately. Whoops. Okay. I forgot what I was putting at the top. User guide management. So now I have user guide management at the top and external partners second. And if I save that and can't find my, here we go. And you do need to refresh this after you do that. And you can see here that the user guide management is now at the top, and the second one is the external partners. And I was going to change this to the accordion view because it makes it a little bit easier to see. Okay. And you can do the same thing with the articles. So I know in this create create new community, I think there's some articles underneath there. And I'll change the order of those just to show you that. Create new community. And it's, okay, so you can see that I have one subfolder under there, but they're over here on the right-hand side, the different articles that are under there. And this is the order that they're currently in. I'll put listing all communities to the top, just as a demonstration. Do that, and then click the save. Okay. And refresh. And you can see listing all communities is at the top. This test subfolder, that was the subfolder that shows up under there. So that's what we're trying to achieve with the enhancements with this new portlet to replace that web content structure and the display template for that to add these additional features and to kind of simplify the configuration for it.
Okay, great. So any questions, hand raised, or use the question? If you raise your hand, I can unmute you. You can ask your question. Okay. All right, so thank you, Mike. And we're going to go ahead and move on to on down the agenda, and we're going to see and hear from Jeff Craven now, who's going to give us a spotlight on his National Blender Models community. And I'll go ahead and make Jeff the panelist. And Jeff, you are muted. You'll need to unmute. Go ahead and unmute yourself. It is telling me that you need to enter in a PIN to unmute. It's odd. There we go. We got you.
My bad.
Okay.
My bad. When I was talking earlier, I didn't have to enter the PIN, and so I apologize for that. Okay, so yeah, we have a fairly popular site that's got about 500 members, and hold on just a second. Anyhow, apologize for that. We have a fairly simple site. I would call it a modest site. Since I maintain it and I'm not very technically oriented, the content I think could use some improvement, but certainly what we've been able to get is a lot of activity on the forums. So I tried to post as much information as possible on here, but what I find is that I still get emails and whatnot asking for information. So I probably don't have it laid out in the best way, but I'll show you what we do have. at the top of the page, this is something I try to keep updated as much as possible, usually once or twice a week. Whenever there's issues, I go ahead and highlight them up here at the top. So for example, we had a implementation on October 3rd, and there's been some issues with AWIPs and decoding issues. And so I try to keep information about trouble tickets and DRs, plus there's been some workarounds, and this right here, so I say there's about 18 elements that don't decode. So we link to the Redmine side. So if you click here, so if someone is in this, they can quickly go to the workarounds database and come down and find that there's a workaround document that talks about all the ways that you can configure and do until we get the baselines corrected. So those that are on 18.1.1, et cetera, et cetera. So that, I'm hoping that that kind of capability makes it easier for people to find information. We also, there's always interest in what our new version, like we started running almost instantly after we got 3.1 running. We have a cron on WCOS running 3.2. So we have a link to the 3.2 GRIB files. So for example, anyone that wants to come and download the GRIB2 information, it's all here. And again, I'm not the best at laying things out, and certainly anyone on the phone that would like to email me with suggestions, great. We have links to SCNs with information. We get lots of questions even from the private sector, which obviously they can't get to this page, but I try to have all of this documents in one place. I also cross-link to the station requests side, which we MOS, LAMP, and NBM, we get station requests for MOS bulletins, and so there's another VLab site linked here. Also, some of the more popular graphics that talk about the National Blend cadence and AWIPs, also the matrix that since it's fairly complicated, we have about 20 inputs, and each hour we average about 6 new model inputs. So I try to keep that updated. What's probably the biggest hit on this, and maybe many of these sites, are the forums. So we started with one forum called Feedback on National Blend. To separate things out, we went ahead and added 2 more. In fact, one of them was requested by Southern Region SSD called NBM Case Studies. So that has had quite a few threads on it. And whenever we just send out information about things that are going on, we have a message board just from things that I send out on SMB, like missing items, workarounds that I just posted. I don't see a lot of views on these. Once in a while, there'll be quite a few. Like here was one a month ago that had 16 views. The thing that's not clear to me is whether people are coming here to look at these forums or if they're just getting emails from this National Blend feedback at NOAA.gov. That may be how they're seeing many of these. So it isn't clear to me. One thing that I tried doing that hasn't worked out all that well is people say they have trouble finding things on here. There's certain documents that I highlight. And again, everything, because I'm not very good with HTML, everything is basically on one page. So here's an outlook for 3.1 that I posted. Again, it's not clear to me whether this is the best way to do things or not. So I'd be curious what you guys think. And then a quick link to several other related items like the NBM viewer and our homepage, MDL homepage for the National Blend are on here in case people wander on and want to see that. And there were so many requests. We were literally getting almost an email a day for a while, people wanting a login that weren't in NOAA to see the NBM viewer, that we created a public-facing CMS page that's fairly simple, based on getting feedback. Hey, I'd like to be able to log into this. So some of these are not directly related to VLab. However, we try to link all these sites from the VLab page. So that's about all I was going to say. Again, I would say that the layout is very modest, but given that we have 500 members and that I see the developers have gotten a lot of fantastic feedback from this site, from forecasters, not just from regional reps, has been very helpful. I would say at times the amount of feedback is very difficult for us to actually digest. Folks are spending a good deal of time. In fact, we've had, at one point, Steve Smith said he thought that one of our posts was probably one of the biggest posts ever on VLab. Let me see if I can find that one for you in the forums. In the meantime, if anyone has a question or comment, let me go to the case studies. I think there's one on here. Trying to 6 views.
While you're searching for that, Tom Filiaggi has his hand raised. Tom, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I do have a question. You said that you get a lot of good feedback. In what way do people provide this feedback in this community? How do you receive that feedback?
Well, all of us are subscribed to the various, like for example, when we got a day ago, all our developers are subscribed to this. So when Jeff Havis asked about the missing text files, we got that, and then we're able to, and then actually some other folks responded. I responded as well. So that's the main thing. Most of our developers don't actually log into the VLab site. They just get products like the emails from it, and then know to look at it and then respond directly. But I don't think that was the original intent. However, it seems to be the easy button that we get feedback and then we respond to it. So I guess it's probably not answering your question, but
well, it sounds like you're saying that the feedback mechanism is primarily the forums, and people primarily interact with the forums through email. Is that right?
Primarily, but not 100. I try to interact with the site directly, but I would say most of my developers just, when they respond, are using the email. It's just probably out of habit.
Do you know to what degree in your forums you use, like, I think when you create a forum thread, you can flag it as like a question. Like, I'm asking a question and expect to get an answer, then somebody can flag it as answered. Do you know if you use that functionality in your forums or no?
No, I would say we are not using these in a sophisticated way. I have found that I don't spend as much time as I ought to managing these from the perspective of all the bells and whistles that are available. For me, it was challenging enough just to remember which buttons to click to create this separate subforum. I'll be honest. I managed to do that, but I did get some feedback from others that the way I had configured it was not ideal. And if I had more time, I would probably try to configure it better. But since it's getting out there and people are using the email, I think the real hurdle we're up against with a lot of the folks is they know how to use their email, but do they want to come in and invest the time to use the forums directly? And I've decided not to fight that battle, for better or for worse.
Okay, thanks.
Ken Johnson, your hand is up. I've got you unmuted.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, Jeff. Ken Johnson here, and I'll admit right up front here, I am one of the people that send you email rather than come out into VLab to find some of the information that's there. I guess my comment is that I recognize there's a lot of information out here, and in fact, I had gotten a report from one of our offices saying they had submitted a WinGus case study using NBM, and I thought, oh great, I'll go out in VLab and find it. Well, couldn't find it. Now that's not necessarily your problem, Jeff. That's a common refrain I hear from a lot of people, and I know Steve Smith and all the developers associated with VLab are probably very familiar with that. Probably the most common complaint that VLab has been difficult to navigate and find what you want. So what I'm wondering is, and by your own admission, Jeff, obviously your time is limited. You can't become a VLab expert and configure this particular community so that it's easier to use. I'm wondering if there's some folks there, some developers that could team up with you to make this a little bit more usable, a little bit more visually navigable, so that the wealth of information that is here is easy to find. Is that something that's possible? Is that, Jeff, is that something you'd be willing to do in conjunction with, with the developers there, or whoever the VLab infrastructure might be able to provide to help you maybe build this a little bit cleaner?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I think that I'm not an expert at web development in terms of layout. I do know from using VLab that if I click on forum, I'm going to get to the forums page, and then it's pretty easy once you click on feedback that it's all of the strings are listed here and how long ago. So I mean, I guess in some ways I don't worry too much about it, because there are features, if you go in and look, that you can do searches as well. So I can click on search. I can say wind gust, and it should pop up, the strings that have wind gusts mentioned. So I think there's so much personal taste in how things are laid out. It's almost impossible for me to determine how I would lay it out to make some people happy and others not. There's also subscribe action. I mean, so if you don't like going to this site and you go to forums home and you're interested in NBM case studies, you click on it and it'll tell you whether you're subscribed or not. So I know I'm subscribed, but if you're not, you just click subscribe and then you get emails from it and you don't have to. So my recommendation is if you spend a little time each week on VLab, you start learning these things. You have to invest some time in it. If you don't, you'll probably never be happy with it. So it's kind of a hard question to answer because the answer is it depends.
All right. No,
I
I
would say,
understand.
and that's the thing is, I thought the same thing as you, but really the way they designed this page, these pages, is that it really, you can come in and get what you want, but in some cases you do kind of have to know what you're looking for. And the only way to know that is to get in here and do it. So I forced myself to come in and just learn enough to be dangerous, and it worked out. But there's very powerful search options, but until you actually do it almost weekly, yeah, it's pretty tough to find things. But once you do it, so I think one of the issues is when you tell VLab developers, hey, can you make it more user friendly? They have trouble because they've worked in it. Just like you are used to using your email, they start using it enough that they don't really know how to make it more user friendly because they thought they already did. Does that make any sense?
Actually, it does, Jeff, because I think anybody that would make that statement, should perhaps come in with a couple of cases to illustrate what it is they mean, because two different people can have two different issues with, let's say, search, and unless they can present particular issues to illustrate what they're having difficulty with, just saying, search isn't very good. It's not very useful statement to anybody.
Right. Like while we were sitting here, I clicked on snow, and every post, even ones from 6-7 months ago that had mentioned snow, popped up. Some of them from 8 months ago. If I let me put in tropical, see what it does. Okay. Case studies, Florence track, marine tropical. So the search function is actually amazingly powerful. Actually, when you're on a particular page, it sort of defaults to your page, so you don't end up jumping to other. There's a bunch of forums on here from a bunch of different locations. So there's a very, very powerful search tools in VLab that could take you way, into completely different forums and, different communities. But I've noticed with this that it tends to search on the level you're currently on. And if you want to search even, there's another search button over here, which is a little bit more powerful up to the upper right, but this search button is right here in the forum. And I think VLab is just like anything, what you encountered 2 years ago versus what you've encountered now is very different, because they have been listening, and they've literally made thousands of changes, and it's impossible to message every change they've done, but they've listened to a lot of changes. And I would say take it for a test run again and see I don't think what you experienced a year ago is going to be the same as what you experienced today.
Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because over the past several weeks, I was just telling somebody else here this afternoon that I've tried to beat the drums a little bit about using VLab, and I get the, the reaction that I tried that once, I'm not going back to that, or I never get into it, I don't find it useful, that sort of thing. And I think a lot of it was initial impressions that people got. And
warts in the sausage.
Yeah, it's
some people are. I'm very.
Back.
Yeah, that's the problem. How how come you haven't developed it yet? Well, because it's not perfect, and so people won't release things. Other folks are warts in the sausage types like me, and they're okay with that kind of thing. I mean, the blend has been a lot like that. Well, the blend sucks in 1.0, so I'm not going to use it. Well, it's a little different now than it was, and I think you're seeing the same thing with VLab. Is they've made a lot of improvements, and what you saw a year or two ago is not, as far as some of these, because I consider myself a very novice user of it. I mean, there's, as you heard, there's questions, there's configurations I could have used that I don't even completely understand or didn't know they existed. But I'm a pretty simple user. But if folks come back and try it again and use some of these search functions, they'll be able to find things a little bit easier than perhaps they might have before. And again, I find it invaluable, and there's literally an army of messages in here that have gone back and forth with examples that we have actually made changes that have gone into operations. One of them came from Frank in, well, at that time in Charleston, but now Columbia, talking about the harmonic in the hourly temperatures. And we were able to fix that in 3.1, and the fix is out there, and I haven't heard anyone complaining about the harmonic, and we've had some non-diurnal temperature events that would have triggered that. Now, maybe it's not perfectly solved, but it's probably not better to the point that no one's mentioning it. So that came directly out of a SUE from a local office. So, and it's in here somewhere if I were to dig.
Greg Patrick, did you still have something to add?
Yeah, this is Greg Patrick's Southern Region SSD. And this question, I think Ken kind of really, and the ensuing discussion kind of took care of my main question there with regard to the search feature. And I agree that the search engine has really improved. Over the past 6 months or so, I've noticed when I've gone in there and searched, I get more relevant results, and even at different levels. But Ken Sparrow at the early part of the call mentioned possibly some upcoming changes to the search. Are those changes or improvements that are going to help? Going to help the communities like Jeff's Indian community, help it out? And can you kind of give us an overview of what's planned?
Sure. So if people, if you did a search a year ago, it's changed dramatically. It's much, much faster now. And, we've introduced behind the scenes, it's using something called Elasticsearch. We have more nodes to speed it up. And we've worked on the user interface. We've been listening to what people have been saying. So if you go and do a search at the global level, that's at the top level. If you just go into the site, there you can search over. Let me actually share my screen really quick because I think that's important. Share my screen. All right, so what do I mean by this is if you go into the main site and you go on the landing page, you have this search bar on the upper right. The default is over everything. So that's going to search over every community that you're a member of. And if you just want to restrict it to this community, you can do so. But let's say, so like I was just doing a quick test on wind event. And if you do a search there, over everything, it'll come back quick, One thing that we made a change based upon feedback was that people didn't want all the details. We use something called faceted search behind the scenes, and so we created this simple search results. So you can see this here, and these are, it's showing you forum messages. This is National Blended Models, so it's right here up front. If you care about the details, you can click on the advanced, and then that's going to then take you, and then you'll see the different facets. So if you want to limit that to the National Blended Models, you can do so by clicking on it. If you want to limit that then to a particular user, you can do so too, and the time frame and such. The one thing I do notice is the behavior, just to be fully upfront, when you click on a link here, it's taking, because within the NVM community, there are 2 instances of the forum. It's taking you to the first one, and that may not be intuitive, and this is, I think, an opportunity where that community has really excellent content. I think we can do a little bit of reorganization of the portlets and the pages to make it even better. So like if I click on this, then it takes you here and you're like, well, that doesn't seem to be what it should be. But if you scroll down, because the forums is on this page, it loaded that forum. If it took you directly to the forums page, where if we didn't have this on the front page, it would do that, and then it'd be much more intuitive. But the search engine itself is much improved. The area where we're spending time right now is that oftentimes you're used to searching for things and expecting to find pages that are related to the search term. And so we're adding that capability. Right now it's focused on the content itself, whether it's a forum message or a web content or a wiki content. But we're also adding, if you add a page to your site that has a particular title in it, that will then be indexed and searched. So the pages, and then the other thing that, in our opinion and other opinions as well, that's missing from the search results today are the communities. And so if you do a search for National Blended Models at the top level, you're not going to get the communities, and you should. And so we're making that change as well. But those are the things that we're currently working on. If there are other things that you think it's not behaving the way it should, please let us know, because we're focused on this right now to improve upon it. But I'm pretty happy with the performance, and that was something I couldn't say a year ago. And so that's kind of and like I said, we can do a little bit, I think, to improve upon the layout of this community. The content's awesome, but I think just some really minor changes, and we can make it even more usable. So,
thank you, Ken.
Sure.
Hey, Frank Alsheimer's had his hand raised for a while. You're unmuted, Frank. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to tell Jeff that it has improved since I made the comment. And as a matter of fact, when we had our event earlier in this week where the forecast temperature is actually rising overnight, the NBM certainly outperformed the usual methods that folks in my office were using. So I think sometimes it's examples like that that people can take home, and they start to become slightly more pliable to things like that. My experience in general, I'm similar to Jeff, and as I like to try new things, even if it doesn't work completely, until I get it in there and sort of make it work the way I want it to work. But there's a culture that's different, and I think that a very astute observation was made that the VLab is sort of the same way. I've found the VLab folks to be very helpful in responding to me when I'm having issues with the page that I run, and I think it's a slow process of adoption, just like pretty much everything else in this government agency. But as you get more people into it and get more people involved and see that it's being used in a functional way, then I think you'll
gradually get more interest. I wish I had a specific timetable to say when you have X amount of people that love the VLab, but I certainly don't. But I've noticed even on our page, it's a slow trickle of improvement as more and more people recognize what value it has.
Thank you for those kind words, Frank. Appreciate it. Any comments or any other questions from anybody else? I guess we can kind of transition into our roundtable. So any other comments, questions just regarding the VLab in general, some issues you've been having or anything like that? Go ahead. Ken Johnson, your hand went back up. Was that, you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment. I believe it was you at the beginning of this call that mentioned outreach. And I think that's an important thing to do, partly because of the comments I made earlier when Jeff was doing his presentation. There has been a certain amount of time that has gone by since perhaps a lot of people first took their look at VLab and maybe didn't go back. You may have an opportunity now to try to show people some new things and perhaps change minds. Like I say, in the past several weeks or so, when I brought up VLab for different reasons to different people, I'm still getting the same kind of response. You know, like I said earlier, oh, I've tried it and I didn't find it useful, or I found it difficult, or you know, I just haven't gone back to it. And so I would encourage whatever sort of outreach you can do to try to illustrate some of the new things. Maybe there's some sort of outreach package you can put together that we could show in the regions or something like that to try to spur on activity here. Something I'm curious about, wondering about, I don't know what kind of statistics that you can get or generate on VLab usage, but I'd be curious to see a distribution of how many people went there once and didn't return, how many people have gone there twice, how many people have gone 10 times, 100 times, that sort of thing. I don't know if you can get those kinds of statistics or not. But, you know, I know Steve Smith keeps showing a graph where the number of users goes up, but I'm just wondering, out of all of those users, what is the distribution of return visits? You know, how many only came back once? How many came back 10 times? How many have come back 1,000 times? That kind of thing. And I guess maybe, are you doing this on the fly?
Those are very good comments. I've asked Todd Neeson, who's on the line here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and unmute.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi. So I appreciate the question and comments. Those are all. So I'm actually in on a rotation from National Ocean Service, working on some of this outreach. There's a couple of ways we're doing it. We did at the beginning, Greg comment on some of them. We did a Weather Service wide webinar. The invite went out to all managers. We had about 70 people attend that. We recorded the session and posted it on our homepage. Ken, I think you're driving. Do you mind going to the VLab homepage for a second?
Sure.
It's a 1 hour overview where we tried to drill through the 6 different tools. A lot of people don't even know what VLab necessarily is, or they might know only a part of it. They might know this Life Rate community you're looking at, but there's 5 other tools we have, especially in the software development side. But in the left page of Ken's screen there is a 1 hour recording that we're hoping hits even more than the 80 people who, of course, attended it. The second thing we're doing is, now obviously NOAA has 25,000 employees, right? So, but even at Weather Service with 6,000, what we're trying to do is break it down by specific locations that have a high concentration of people. So in College Park, there's about 1,800 to 1,000 NOAA employees there, including from NESDIS and OAR, besides Weather Service. We're going to go there December 12th. The following month in January, the central region specifically reached out about doing some outreach. So that's why a couple of us are going to go to Kansas City and then virtually invite the weather forecast offices under the central region. So we're getting there. In a perfect world, we would somehow be able to reach out to all 25,000 people and make them aware of it, but we're trying to tackle it in chunks. Going back to the analytics side, Ken was starting to bring up Google Analytics. Now, we can't track, we're not legally allowed to track what an individual person does in terms of their behavior, but we do track what you're getting at, which is who's coming in. There's statistics called bounce rate, how many people come into a page and maybe leave right away. There's a billion metrics that we try to track. The hard part is you gotta have to filter through the noise and pick up on patterns. Ken can show you some of that. And Ken, I don't mean that you can talk to this a little bit.
No, that's fine. So, I mean, it's we're using Google Analytics, so we have there's many of the questions that you ask can be addressed. I've gone in and I changed it to be over the past year as opposed to, and so we can see the flow rate and within each, when are people going to it. We also have at the application level, we're recording, when people are logging in. In addition to this, we're making changes on the back end to store our statistics within Elasticsearch itself. What that'll give us the ability to do is to look at historically over time, like the number of users and things like that concurrent users that are accessing the system, and do some important dashboards that also give us more tools to be able to troubleshoot things. If we had an issue where web crawlers were going and hitting our public-facing sites, and that was introducing some issues, and that would have been much easier to solve had we had some of these tools. But there's, so if there's specific questions then we can, try to address those from Eastern region perspective, and so, so there are a lot. There's a lot of data. It's just finding the time to, actually go out and investigate and dive into it. So.
Go ahead.
And I think another prong that we're trying to tackle is when we have it, what we've seen a lot, and I've seen this in my short time here, we'll have a user request a new resource in VLab, say it's a new community page or a new Redmine project. What we're now trying to build into our process is automatically following up with them about 4 to 6 weeks out. We look to see if they were able to get rolling. And of course we have users contact us every day with problems, but we were, from an active standpoint, but we were worried about maybe some passive issues we had. Maybe someone was stuck and just, needed a little guidance. So we try to offer that and reach out. We're also working on, as far as the intuitiveness of some of the tools, we do have a plan to do very short 1 to 2 minute videos that'll be quick tutorials that are going to highlight specific features that we think are useful and that our user base can easily, learn and apply. So we're doing a couple different things, and we're trying to figure out what's the most effective as a long-term strategy. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks for showing this.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question about the analytics. Specific, like I'm the leader of the store group, and from my example, within the next week, I'm gonna have submit something to the NWS Insider to be published about the store. Mm-hmm. Is there a way that I can work with somebody in your group to say, all right, what kind of a bump in views, say, did I get after this particular thing was published? I'm going to send out an email to the ALSU, see what kind of response I get to that. Just for my personal use to see, all right, what is the most effective way that seems to be working to get people's attention to the page and the site and the community that we have in the VLab? Sure.
So if you want to work with us directly, we can do that. The other thing that is an option is that we can create a property ID for you, and actually within your community, you can go in and add that. So let me just demonstrate that. So there's I think it's under configuration and community settings, and I believe it's under advanced. You can see that there's a Google Analytics ID in here. And so if we were to go within the store community, you can actually have your own ID, and then that would track it independently, and then we can give you access to view that data within. So that's a possibility too if you want that. If it's a one-time type thing, then maybe it just makes sense to keep the tracking within VLab, that other property as a whole, and then we can work with you on that. But let me just
Yeah, I don't want to take up everybody's time, so I can follow you more offline, but I certainly see the benefit of having that and seeing the visits. Obviously one of the things you want to do is keep the page fresh and updated with good information, and we don't want it to become just a junk drawer where everybody has links and everything. And so I think understanding where people are going to within that page over a given amount of time helps us to understand where we have to freshen up the material, and also maybe there's certain material that's just really not any longer needed in this particular venue and can be taken off, so we can maintain a crisp, clean look and community.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good thing to be doing, and we're actually going through some of that ourselves within VLab, the main community itself. So refreshes are always important. So yeah, just work with us offline. Contact vlab.admin@noaa.gov, and we can help you out with that campaign. So
okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any more questions, comments from anybody? Ken, I think your hand is still up from before, or is this a new question?
No, I meant to bring it down, sorry.
Okay. All right, why don't we go ahead and wrap things up then? Just to let you know, this webinar has been recorded. It'll be posted onto the VLab and shared on YouTube, like we always do. Let me go ahead and bring my screen back up real quick here. Also want to thank our presenters for today, Ken, Mike, and Jeff, and all those who've commented as well. And just let you know that we're operating on a quarterly basis now, so our next meeting is scheduled for February 6th next year. Our spotlight right now is Pete Rohr is going to be talking about the global or geostationary lightning mapper community and project. So we'll be looking forward to that. So again, thank everyone for attending, and we will see you next time.